the company that owns the patent can charge more or less what it likes for that medication. Now, currently in New Zealand, patents for medications expire after 20 years in general, but for a new class of drugs known as biologics, which the reporters talked about last year, there's only a 5-year patent period. These drugs are new, an emerging class, and they're enormously expensive. So, where are we now? Here we are. I'll just skip to, in the United States last year, for example, these specialty medicines or biologics, the names are more or less interchangeable, they accounted for 1/3 of all spending on drugs, up from 19% in 2004. And the predictions are that they will reach 50% of the America's drug bill within the next 10 years. Another estimate from the New York Times biotechnology correspondents estimated that the value of these drugs quadrupled from $20 billion in 2005 to $78 billion in sales last year. So this is a massively growing proportion of the health budget. Now, as mentioned previously, New Zealand laws currently give a 5-year patent for these medications. And according to Tim Grosser, that isn't going to change. However, his view is not shared by the US Deputy Trade Representative Robert Holliman, who told Congress late last year that the TPPA will require, for the first time in a trade agreement, parties to provide an extended term of effective market protection for biologic medicines. And I've got to say that, to my eyes, reading the text, it does appear that Holliman is right and Grosser is wrong. So what this means, at present, each additional year of patent protection for these medications will cost in the tens of millions of dollars. But if New Zealand's prescribing trends follow those predicted for the United States, then we're talking about possibly hundreds of millions of dollars being added to the drug bill within a decade or so. This is not an inconsiderable sum. I will skip ahead. This talk is slightly longer than 15 minutes, so I'll just chop. Tobacco control. So the clauses which say that the ISDS chapter, the ISDS provisions, don't apply to governments' smoke-free policies, that's great. But it does not mean that the agreement as a whole does not apply to tobacco, and there are many other provisions in the TPPA which will tie the hands of governments attempting to impose tobacco control measures. So, for example, while investors are barred, or may be barred, from suing governments, there's nothing to stop other governments suing our government, perhaps on behalf of their tobacco industry, for our smoke-free policies. Because the real problem, as we've heard, is this investment chapter. What is considered protected is even the expectation of profit. It doesn't even have to be actual profit, but even if a government acts in a way that diminishes an expectation of profit, then they're liable to be sued either by investors or by other governments. I'll just conclude then by looking at some of the more far-reaching aspects of the agreement which haven't really been talked about yet. These relate to what we in the health field call the social determinants of health, which are the economic and social conditions and their distribution among the population that influence individual and group differences in health status. So the World Health Organization, which is the authority on these topics, talks about things like working conditions, schooling, early childhood experiences, the physical form of the environment, the quality of the natural environment. These things are what are going to be affected most, I believe, by the TPPA, because it continues the process we've seen of liberalisation and deregulation for the last 30 years, which has been associated with increasing inequality, decreasing quality of work and work rights, environmental deterioration. So I think that, I've just seen another point that although it hasn't not really been highlighted yet, the greatest health impact of the TPPA is likely to, in the long run, to be the damage it does to our social fabric.
Thank you, Grant.